The chandelier above the Plaza Hotel ballroom shimmered like a galaxy of diamonds. Reporters circled the red carpet, cameras flashing as Manhattan's elite paraded through the grand doors. Daniel Hayes, tall, polished, and powerful, adjusted his Rolex, his arm wrapped around Vanessa Reed, his stunning PR director. The banner behind them glowed, Hayes Capital Charity Gala for Children's Health. Emily Carter stood near the entrance, one hand on her 7-month pregnant belly, the other holding her iPhone. She had dressed carefully that night, soft blue silk, simple makeup, hair tucked behind her ears. To everyone else, she was the CEO's wife, graceful, supportive, the woman behind the man. But inside, she was uneasy. Something in Daniel's eyes had changed lately, colder, distant, hungry for more than just success. Her phone vibrated. It was the babysitter. "Emily, it's Lily. She's wheezing again. Her breathing's bad." Emily's heart clenched. Her 3-year-old daughter had been born premature and still struggled with respiratory issues. "Stay calm," Emily whispered. "I'll be there soon." She turned toward Daniel across the ballroom. He was laughing beside Vanessa, champagne in hand, photographers flashing. Emily walked quickly to him, trying not to draw attention. "Daniel," she said softly, "Lily's not well. I need you to come with me." He glanced at his watch. "Now? We just started the speeches, Em. The board's here. Investors from Wall Street." "Daniel," she interrupted, her voice trembling. "She can't breathe." Vanessa placed her manicured hand on Daniel's sleeve. "Don't worry, Emily. The hospital's 5 minutes away. I'm sure the doctors can handle it. Daniel's needed here tonight." The words sliced through Emily like ice. Around them, people turned. Whispers, stares. Emily's face burned with humiliation. She looked at Daniel, hoping he would prove them wrong. But his jaw tightened, and he said quietly, "I can't leave right now. This event is too important." Something broke inside her. She stared at him, unable to speak. The man who once promised family first now stood frozen by reputation and greed. Her eyes blurred with tears. "I'll go alone," she whispered, her voice shaking. As she turned to leave, Vanessa's laugh echoed behind her, soft but cruel. A reporter's camera flashed, catching the exact moment Emily walked away in her silk dress, clutching her belly, disappearing into the golden hallway. Outside, the night air hit cold. Taxis lined Fifth Avenue, headlights reflecting off the wet pavement. Emily climbed in, breath heavy, whispering to herself, "Hold on, Lily. Mommy's coming." The city lights rushed by like ghosts. Fifth Avenue boutiques, the glow of Cartier, Tiffany's window shining like another world she no longer belonged to. The taxi stopped at a red light near Central Park. Emily pressed her forehead against the glass, tears streaking down her cheeks. Back at the plaza, Daniel lifted his glass again. Cameras flashed. "To new beginnings," he said into the microphone, Vanessa smiling beside him. But even through applause and glitter, something deep in his chest flickered. A tiny, uneasy spark he couldn't explain. Across town, Emily ran through the hospital entrance, shouting for help. Doctors rushed Lily into the ER as Emily stood frozen in the hallway, gown trembling, heart pounding. For the first time, she realized the man she married might never come back. Not tonight, not ever. And as her daughter struggled for breath, Emily made a silent vow. This was the night she stopped waiting for him. Before the glitter, before the lies, their love had been simple. Emily still remembered the tiny apartment in Queens, where the hum of traffic mixed with the smell of Daniel's cheap coffee. Back then, he wasn't the CEO of Hayes Capital. He was just Daniel, a dreamer who worked late nights coding financial software on a second-hand MacBook Pro. She used to sit beside him, correcting spreadsheets, laughing when the lights flickered. They'd talk about a future with no limits. A brownstone near Central Park, maybe 2 kids, and Sunday mornings at Starbucks with Lily coloring on napkins. Those nights had felt like forever. But forever faded fast in Manhattan. When Daniel's startup landed its first $1 million investment, everything changed. They moved into a luxury apartment overlooking Central Park West. The walls smelled of fresh marble. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling, showing off the city's skyline. Emily tried to decorate it with warmth. Family photos, Lily's drawings, little notes on the fridge that said, "Love you." Daniel replaced them with stock reports, printed contracts, and business awards. It wasn't just their home that changed. It was him. He began coming home late, talking about investors on Park Avenue, dinners at the River Cafe, meetings that couldn't wait. He smelled like cologne and ambition. When Emily asked about his day, he'd nod absently, eyes glued to his iPhone. "Daniel," she whispered one night, "you're missing bedtime again." He looked at her, distracted. "You don't understand the pressure, Em. We're expanding fast. Everyone's watching." "I'm watching too," she said quietly. "And I barely recognize you." He sighed, rubbed his temples, and walked into his office, the door closing like a wall between them. Weeks turned into months. Emily found herself eating dinner alone with Lily. Pasta, crayons, laughter trying to fill the silence he left behind. She still believed he loved them. She told herself this was just a phase. Love, after all, was supposed to survive pressure. Then one evening, as she folded Lily's clothes beside a half-open Amazon box filled with baby items, she noticed a receipt on the counter. Tiffany & Co., 5th Avenue. 2 rings, not one. Her stomach twisted. She wanted to believe it was nothing, a business gift perhaps. But deep down, something cold settled inside her. Daniel came home that night smelling of champagne. She confronted him gently. "I saw a charge from Tiffany's." He froze for a moment, then smiled too easily. "Oh, that's for a client's wife. It's nothing, Em." His lie was smooth, too smooth. Still, she nodded, pretending to believe him. But that night, as she watched him scroll through emails beside her in bed, she realized she no longer knew what filled his eyes. They weren't warm like before. They were calculating, distracted, far away, like she was part of an old chapter he didn't have time to reread. The next morning, Emily walked Lily to preschool. The autumn air smelled like roasted chestnuts and rain. She watched other parents kiss their kids goodbye, simple, ordinary love, and wondered when hers had stopped feeling real. Back home, she brewed coffee in silence, staring at Daniel's untouched mug on the counter. On the table lay a photo from their wedding. Her in white, him whispering promises under fairy lights. For a long moment, she traced the edge of the frame with her finger. Then she whispered, "You promised me forever." And as the city roared outside her window, she realized forever was starting to mean something else. Something she would have to rebuild on her own. But deep inside, a quiet storm was forming. One that would soon turn Daniel's glittering world upside down. Vanessa Reed entered Daniel's world like champagne bubbles, bright, sparkling, and dangerous if you drank too much. She was the new PR executive at Hayes Capital, known for turning CEOs into celebrities. With her perfect blonde waves, designer heels, and voice dipped in honey, she made everyone feel seen, even when she was already calculating their value. Emily first met her at a company dinner 6 months ago. Vanessa had extended a manicured hand, smile flawless. "Emily, I've heard so much about you. Daniel says you're the rock that keeps everything steady." Emily had smiled politely, though something about that compliment felt off. Too practiced, too knowing. When Daniel's phone buzzed during dessert, Vanessa leaned in and whispered something that made him laugh. The rest of the table followed. Emily stared at her plate, feeling invisible. From that night, things shifted. Vanessa became Daniel's shadow, in meetings, on flights, at rooftop events overlooking the Manhattan skyline. She wasn't just managing his image, she was shaping his mind. Her mantra, "You're not just a CEO, Daniel. You're a brand." The more Vanessa whispered about image and influence, the more Daniel began to forget who he really was. He started working out at dawn, changing his wardrobe, buying expensive colognes, even booking a stylist through her contacts. He replaced his wedding ring with a platinum Cartier band that matched hers for branding consistency. Emily watched the transformation like someone standing outside her own house, seeing the lights go out one by one. One afternoon, while packing a lunch for Lily, she found a text on Daniel's iPad left open on the counter. "Lunch at the River Cafe? Investors love seeing us together. V." Her heart pounded, but she told herself it was business. Yet something deeper whispered otherwise. Later that evening, Daniel came home, smelling faintly of wine and perfume that wasn't hers. "Big day," he said, tossing his Mont Blanc pen onto the marble counter. "Vanessa got us featured in Forbes. This could double our valuation." Emily forced a smile. "That's great, but you missed Lily's doctor appointment." He shrugged. "You could have handled it." "I did. Alone," she said quietly. He didn't even look up. From that day, Emily began noticing how often Vanessa's name filled their home. In emails, in calls, even in Daniel's dreams. Once she heard him murmur Vanessa in his sleep. The next morning, she stared at him over coffee, wondering when he had started to belong to someone else. At work, Vanessa's influence grew. Her social media posts showed her beside Daniel at Wall Street breakfasts, board meetings, charity lunches. The captions always said #leadership goals. Emily saw one photo of them together, his hand on her back as they laughed under the Ritz-Carlton's chandelier. The internet called them the power duo of Park Avenue. Emily's stomach twisted. Duo, not team, not colleagues. Duo. That night, she printed the article and placed it in a drawer. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just folded the paper neatly, the way she folded Lily's pajamas, and whispered, "You'll regret this someday, Daniel." Still, a part of her hoped she was wrong. That maybe he'd wake up and remember the man who once cooked pancakes at midnight, who kissed her forehead when Lily was born. But deep down, she knew Vanessa Reed wasn't just another colleague. She was a mirror. One that reflected Daniel's deepest weakness, the hunger to be adored. And soon, that hunger would consume him completely. Because when desire mixes with power, someone always gets burned, and Emily was about to learn just how deadly that fire could be. The night of the gala at the Plaza Hotel was supposed to celebrate success, not destroy it. The ballroom gleamed under golden light, the air filled with laughter, champagne, and the faint scent of roses imported from Italy. Every major investor on Wall Street was there, along with photographers hungry for scandal. Daniel, in a tailored black tuxedo, stood in the center like a king among admirers. Vanessa, radiant in her crimson gown, hovered beside him, her hand always finding his arm, her smile sharp as glass. Emily arrived quietly, wearing a soft cream dress that stretched over her 7-month belly. She hadn't wanted to come. Her instincts screamed that something bad would happen, but Daniel insisted. "It's a big night, Em. Please just smile for the cameras." She did. For him. Half an hour into the event, Daniel was already surrounded by media. Vanessa whispered something in his ear, and he threw his head back, laughing for the flashbulbs. Emily stood at the edge of the crowd, her clutch clutched tightly, watching him forget she existed. Then her phone buzzed. The babysitter again. "Emily, it's Lily. Her breathing's worse. I think she needs the ER." The world went silent. Emily's pulse roared in her ears. She looked across the ballroom at Daniel, her husband, the man who once swore he'd never let her face anything alone. She hurried toward him, weaving through the glittering crowd. "Daniel," she said, breathless, "it's Lily. She can't breathe. We need to go." He glanced at her, irritation flickering behind his polished smile. Not now. I'm about to give a speech." "Daniel, please," she whispered. "She's turning blue." Before he could answer, Vanessa slid closer, her voice dripping sugar. "Emily, darling, maybe you should call an ambulance. Daniel can meet you later. This event's too important for him to leave right now." A murmur rippled through the surrounding guests. Phones tilted, recording. Emily's throat tightened. "She's your daughter, Daniel," she said softly, but Daniel didn't move. He looked at the cameras, then at Vanessa, then at Emily, and chose silence. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. The music played on, but everything in Emily's world stopped. "Fine," she said, tears catching in her voice. "I'll go without you." She turned to leave, clutching her stomach. Behind her, Vanessa's laugh cut through the ballroom, low, mocking, perfectly timed for the journalists hovering nearby. One camera flash captured the exact moment. Emily, eyes shining with pain, walking away while Daniel stayed beside another woman. The image would later appear on 3 financial gossip blogs under the headline, "Hayes Capital CEO's wife storms out of charity gala." Outside, the cold Manhattan night slapped her cheeks. She stumbled into a yellow taxi, heart racing. Through the window, she saw Daniel raising his glass inside, toasting with investors as if nothing had happened. At the hospital, nurses rushed Lily into the emergency ward. Emily stood in the hallway, trembling, hands pressed to her belly. The fluorescent lights were harsh, the world too bright. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Daniel. "Can't leave yet. Press everywhere. I'll come later." That was it. No love, no worry, just image control. Emily sank into a plastic chair, tears spilling silently. Around her, machines beeped, doctors shouted codes, life and death pulsed in every sound. She realized, in that sterile hallway, that she had become invisible to the man she once gave everything to. And somewhere deep inside, the first spark of anger lit. Small, quiet, but unstoppable. Because tonight wasn't just the night Daniel abandoned his family. It was the night Emily Carter began to stop forgiving him. The taxi sped through the Manhattan rain, wipers cutting across glass like frantic hands. Emily clutched her phone, whispering to the babysitter, "Hold on, I'm almost there." The sirens outside blurred into the storm. She looked down at her belly. Her baby kicked weakly, as if sensing the panic. Her other hand held Lily's tiny stuffed bear, left on the kitchen counter earlier that day. By the time she reached the hospital on East 68th Street, Lily was already in the emergency room. The air was sharp with disinfectant and fear. "She's having another asthma crisis," a nurse said, rushing past. "Her oxygen levels are low." Emily ran down the corridor, nearly tripping over her heels. She saw Lily on a hospital bed, her small chest rising and falling too fast. Tubes and wires attached. "Mommy's here," Emily gasped, holding her daughter's trembling hand. "It's okay, sweetheart. Breathe for me." Dr. Michael Chen, the pediatric specialist, appeared beside her. Calm, composed, a voice like steady rain. "Mrs. Hayes, we're giving her continuous albuterol and oxygen. She'll need close monitoring overnight." Emily nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. "Thank you. Please, just save her." Behind her the door opened, not Daniel, a nurse carrying forms. Emily signed automatically, realizing her husband hadn't called once. She pulled out her phone, dialing him again. Straight to voicemail. She sent a message, "Lily's critical. Where are you?" No response. Minutes turned into hours. Machines beeped rhythmically, each sound slicing her nerves thinner. Emily sat beside the bed, holding Lily's small hand, whispering lullabies to keep herself from breaking. She checked her phone every few seconds. Nothing. Around 11 p.m., her iPhone lit up, a message. Relief surged, until she read it. "Daniel, I can't leave. Investors expect me to stay. The company's image matters right now." She froze. Her hand trembled as she reread the words. The company's image. That was what mattered. Not Lily gasping for air. Not the baby inside her twisting in fear. Emily typed back furiously. She might not make it, but then stopped. He wouldn't read it. He'd already made his choice. A nurse offered her a cup of coffee. Emily shook her head, watching through the glass as Dr. Chen adjusted Lily's ventilator. The smell of antiseptic filled her lungs. Her body ached from exhaustion. Still no husband, no help. The clock ticked past midnight. Outside, the city glowed through the rain, Park Avenue glimmering like another world. A delivery boy walked past with a Starbucks cup in hand. The normalcy of it hit her hard. Somewhere, people were laughing, drinking, living. But here, everything hung between one breath and the next. Emily leaned close to Lily. "You're so brave, my love. Mommy's here. I won't leave you, I promise." Her phone buzzed again. A notification from social media. She clicked, and her stomach dropped. A photo of Daniel and Vanessa at the gala, laughing, glasses raised, the caption, "Power Couple of the Year." Emily stared until her eyes blurred. The world around her spun. It was as if someone had ripped out the last thread holding her together. She stood, walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at her reflection under the harsh fluorescent light. Mascara streaked down her face, her once smooth hair tangled. For the first time, she didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. Then something inside her shifted. Not rage yet, but something colder, clearer. She whispered, "If he won't stand by me now, he never will." And in that sterile hospital bathroom, Emily Carter began to understand what survival really meant. Because from this night on, love would no longer be her weakness. It would become her weapon. Morning crept through the hospital windows, pale and heavy. The storm had passed, but inside Emily the chaos raged on. She hadn't slept. Her eyes burned from tears and fluorescent lights. Lily was stable for now, breathing softly beside her, a small oxygen mask covering her nose. Every tiny sound from the machines made Emily flinch. She kept one hand on Lily's blanket, the other on her belly, whispering, "You're both safe? Mommy's here." Then her phone buzzed again. "Daniel." Her pulse jumped. Maybe he'd finally come to his senses. She opened the message. "Daniel, press still around. I can't risk leaving. Investors watching. Stay calm. I'll check in later." Emily's mouth went dry. "Investors," she whispered. "Not family. Not I'm sorry. Just business." Dr. Chen walked in quietly, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Hayes, Lily's breathing is improving, but I'd like to keep her for observation. Another episode like this could be dangerous." Emily nodded, forcing a smile. "Thank you, doctor." He looked at her for a moment, the exhaustion, the swollen eyes, the ring she kept twisting around her finger. Do you have someone who can help you get some rest? She hesitated. No, it's just me, he nodded, his eyes kind. Then we'll help however we can. When he left, the silence swallowed her again. She picked up her phone, calling Daniel. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Nothing. Finally she typed, "If you don't come now, don't bother coming at all." 10 minutes later, his name flashed on the screen. Relief and fury collided inside her. She answered, "Daniel?" "Emily, calm down." His voice came sharp and controlled. "I can't leave the gala aftermath right now. Reporters are still here. If I walk out, they'll twist the story. You know how this city works." "Lily almost died," Emily snapped, her voice cracking. "She couldn't breathe, Daniel. Your daughter." "I know," he interrupted, "but I can't fix that. The doctors can. That what I can fix is our image. If I'm seen running from a charity event, investors panic. Stocks fall. Everyone loses." "Everyone but your family," she whispered. He exhaled. "This isn't about choosing sides, Em. It's business." Emily stared at the ceiling, numb. "Business," she repeated softly. "That's what our marriage is now?" He didn't answer, only silence. Then, click, the line went dead. Her hand shook as she lowered the phone. For a long moment she just sat there, staring at the white hospital wall until it blurred. The sound of Lily's soft breathing pulled her back. Her daughter, her entire world, lying fragile under thin blankets while her husband posed for cameras with another woman. A nurse entered with a clipboard. "Mrs. Hayes, we'll need your signature for the emergency treatment cost." Emily blinked. "Insurance should cover. Your husband's name is listed under corporate billing. They said authorization was denied." Denied. Something inside her snapped quietly. Not rage, not tears, just the clean break of something that had already been cracked too long. She took the pen, signed her own name, and handed it back. "Put it under me," she said. Her voice was steady. "Just me." Hours later, Lily slept peacefully. Emily stood by the window, watching the sun bleed gold over Park Avenue. She pulled out her phone again, scrolled to Daniel's last message, and deleted every word. Then she opened her notes app and typed 4 new ones. "I'm done waiting." She looked at her reflection in the glass, pale, tired, but alive. For the first time, she saw not the broken wife Daniel abandoned, but the woman who would no longer beg to be chosen. Because when love dies in silence, strength is born in its place, and Emily Carter was finally ready to fight. The next morning, sunlight slipped across the hospital room, brushing against the pale sheets and tired faces. Lily was finally sleeping without the oxygen mask, her tiny fingers curled around her stuffed bear. The world outside buzzed with the usual Manhattan noise. Traffic, sirens, life moving forward. But inside, Emily felt like time had frozen. Her phone lay on the bedside table, silent now, its screen still stained with unanswered messages. Daniel never came. No calls, no texts, no apology. Just silence and the faint echo of last night's words. It's business. Emily sat by the window, watching the sun climb between the tall buildings. She looked down at the street, taxis rushing, people laughing, the same city that had once promised her everything. For years she'd believed that love could survive ambition. Now she knew ambition had devoured love whole. She pressed her hand against her belly. The baby kicked gently, as if reminding her to keep breathing. "It's okay," she whispered. "Mommy's got you. We're going to be okay." A knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Dr. Michael Chen, holding a folder. His warm eyes carried both exhaustion and compassion. "Good news," he said. "Lily's responding well. I think she'll be ready to go home tomorrow." Emily let out a trembling sigh of relief. "Thank you, doctor. I don't know what I'd do without you." He smiled. "Just keep being her mom. That's enough." When he left, Emily turned to her purse to find her insurance papers. A soft voice interrupted her. "Emily?" She looked up. Standing in the doorway was a woman, tall, confident, wearing a navy suit. Her hair was pulled into a neat bun, her expression steady. "Maya Johnson," the woman said, stepping inside. "We met years ago at your wedding. I was Daniel's friend from law school." Emily blinked. The memory flickered. Laughter, champagne, promises. "Maya? Right, what are you doing here?" "I saw the photos," Maya said quietly. "The gala, the gossip sites. I'm sorry, Emily. You didn't deserve that." She paused, eyes softening. "I'm a family lawyer now. If you ever need help, legal or otherwise, you call me." Emily tried to smile. "I'm fine." Maya studied her for a moment. "No, you're not, but you will be. Trust me." After she left, Emily stared at the business card she'd slipped onto the table. Maya Johnson, Family Law, Upper East Side. She turned it over in her hand, feeling the weight of the future pressing against her skin. That evening, when Lily woke up, Emily fed her soup, brushing her curls gently aside. "You're my brave girl," she whispered. Lily's weak smile broke her heart and mended it all at once. Later, when Lily fell asleep again, Emily sat alone in the quiet room. The night outside glowed faintly, streetlights reflecting off the hospital windows. She reached into her bag and pulled out her old Kindle, the one Daniel bought her years ago for their honeymoon flight. On the screen still sat a book she'd never finished, Atomic Habits. She tapped it open, reading the line that would stay with her forever. "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." Her eyes stung. Maybe this was her lowest point. Maybe this was what it meant to fall. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She whispered into the dim light, "Then I'll build new systems. For me, for Lily." The baby inside her stirred gently, as if in agreement. And as dawn began to bloom over Manhattan once more, Emily Carter felt something she hadn't felt in months, a quiet, trembling spark of hope. Because even in the darkest hour, the faintest light can be enough to start again. A week later, the city outside Emily's apartment looked the same. Glittering windows, honking cars, the Manhattan skyline slicing through morning fog. But everything inside her had changed. She moved slower now, careful with every step, her belly heavier, her spirit quieter. Lily's laughter echoed faintly from the living room as cartoons played on the TV. Emily folded bills at the kitchen table, adding numbers that never seemed to balance. Hospital fees, prescriptions, rent. Her savings were draining fast. Daniel hadn't transferred a dime. When she opened her laptop, the bank account screen made her chest tighten. The joint account, the one they'd shared since their wedding, showed almost empty. Only 2 weeks ago, there'd been more than enough. Now the balance was barely enough to buy groceries. Her hand trembled. She refreshed the page twice, still empty. Emily called the bank immediately. "There must be a mistake," she said, her voice thin. "The funds are missing." The representative hesitated. "Ma'am, the transfers were authorized by Mr. Hayes, several withdrawals into a corporate sub-account, all valid under his signature." Emily gripped the phone so hard her knuckles turned white. "He moved our savings." "Yes, ma'am. I'm afraid it's all under his business entity. We can't reverse it without a legal order." She ended the call, staring at the glowing screen. The truth hit her like ice. Daniel hadn't just left her emotionally, he was cutting her off completely. The next morning, Maya showed up at her apartment, holding 2 coffees. "You look like hell," she said bluntly, setting one down. "Thanks," Emily muttered, rubbing her eyes. Maya noticed the bank papers scattered across the table. "He drained you?" "Every cent," Emily whispered, "all under business expenses." Maya sighed, pulling out her reading glasses. "Classic control move. But we can fight this." "I don't even want his money," Emily said, voice trembling. "I just need enough to keep Lily safe." Maya looked at her gently. "Then you need to protect yourself first. Start gathering everything. Bank statements, emails, even small receipts. Every detail matters." Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. She reached into the drawer and began pulling out old documents. Receipts, statements, photos. Her hands froze when she found a small velvet pouch. Inside, a silver Mont Blanc pen engraved with "To VR." She stared at it. "He bought this on our anniversary," she murmured. "Said it was for the office." Maya raised an eyebrow. "VR? Vanessa Reed?" Emily nodded, her face pale. "He bought her a gift with our joint card." Maya leaned back, exhaling. "Good. That's evidence of misuse of marital funds. Keep it." As the lawyer spoke, Emily realized something terrifying and liberating. Every lie Daniel had told, every quiet betrayal was now fuel. Proof. A weapon she never wanted, but now needed. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Emily sat alone at the kitchen table, papers spread out like battle plans. Outside, Manhattan shimmered, cold, expensive, indifferent. She stared at the Mont Blanc pen beside her laptop, the symbol of Daniel's arrogance, and whispered, "You taught me to fight numbers with numbers." She began typing, fingers steady. An email to Maya. Attached are account statements, receipts, and screenshots of transfers. "I'm ready to move forward." Before sending, she paused, breathing deeply. For the first time, fear didn't choke her. It fueled her. She looked at the sleeping form of Lily through the open doorway and felt something powerful rising inside. The quiet rage of a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. Because betrayal might break the heart, but it also awakens the kind of strength no one sees coming. It had been 2 weeks since Lily was discharged from the hospital. The oxygen machine still hummed softly in her bedroom, a constant reminder of how close they'd come to losing her. Emily tried to make life feel normal again. Pancakes in the morning, storybooks at night, but everything she did carried a quiet ache. The other half of their family had vanished, replaced by silence and public scandal. Daniel hadn't visited once. He'd texted twice, both short, both empty. "Hope she's okay. I'm busy this week. We'll send something soon." That something never came. One Friday afternoon, Emily was folding laundry when she heard a knock on the door. Her heart jumped. For a foolish second, she thought maybe it was him. But when she opened the door, Daniel stood there with sunglasses on, phone in hand, wearing his expensive gray suit like armor. "Emily," he said flatly, as if they were business partners, not husband and wife. "I have a meeting in 30 minutes, but I wanted to stop by." Lily ran from her room, squealing, "Daddy." Her small arms wrapped around his legs. Daniel froze for a moment, then awkwardly bent down, patting her back. "Hey, sweetheart, you look bigger." Emily crossed her arms. "She almost died, Daniel. That's what happens when you miss entire weeks of her life." He glanced away, pretending not to hear. "I brought something." He held out a turquoise Tiffany box, the ribbon perfectly tied. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet engraved "Daddy's Girl." Emily stared at it. "You think a bracelet fixes this?" Daniel sighed. "Don't start. I came here to show I care." "You came here for 5 minutes between meetings," she shot back. "You care about your image, not your family." "Image is everything," he said, tone low. "Without it, there's no company, no money, no security for anyone." Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, can you stay for dinner?" His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then forced a smile. "I can't, baby. Daddy has work." Her little face fell. "But I made a picture for you." Daniel crouched down, kissed her forehead quickly, and stood up. "Next time, okay?" Emily's throat burned. "There won't be a next time if this is what you call fatherhood." He slipped on his sunglasses. "I'm doing the best I can." "No," she said, voice shaking but strong. "You're doing what's easiest for you." He opened the door to leave, his cologne lingering like a ghost. "We'll talk later," he muttered, already halfway gone. When the door closed, Emily turned to see Lily clutching the Tiffany box. "Mommy, why doesn't Daddy want to stay?" Emily knelt, pulling her daughter close. "Daddy's just busy, sweetheart." "But I drew him," Lily whispered. "I wanted him to see." Emily's heart cracked clean in two. She took the drawing, a stick family of 3 holding hands, and pressed it against her chest. "He'll see it someday," she said softly, though she knew he never would. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Emily sat by the window with a cup of cold tea. The city glittered below, every light a life moving forward while hers stood still. She opened her phone and saw Daniel's newest post, a photo of him and Vanessa at a Park Avenue dinner smiling for the camera. The caption read, "Building legacies, not excuses. Nemis." Emily stared at it for a long time, her hands trembling, not with grief anymore, but clarity. She whispered to herself, "Then I'll build mine too." And in that quiet Manhattan apartment, she made another silent promise, one not of love, but of justice. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't anger or hate, it's becoming everything they swore you couldn't survive without. Sunday morning arrived quiet and gray. The city outside was still half asleep, mist curling around the buildings like smoke. Inside the small apartment, the kitchen table was covered with bills, medical reports, and court forms. Emily sat in her robe, hands around a mug of coffee gone cold, staring at the papers that would end her marriage. The silence was heavy, except for the faint sound of cartoons from Lily's room. For 3 days, Daniel hadn't called again. No text, no apology. Not even a word about the hospital bill he'd refused to pay. The man who once swore he'd build the world for them had turned his back completely. Emily opened her laptop and reread the email Maya had sent the night before. "We can start the separation process. I'll handle everything, but you have to be ready for the backlash." Backlash. The word echoed. She imagined Daniel's face when the papers hit his office. The disbelief, the fury, the embarrassment. For a second, she almost pitied him. Then she remembered the photo of him and Vanessa at that Park Avenue dinner, laughing while she'd been up all night with a sick child. Pity evaporated. She picked up her pen, hand trembling slightly, and began to fill out the form. Her name looked strange alone, Emily Carter Hayes. The Hayes part suddenly felt foreign, borrowed, undeserved. She paused, then crossed it out on the draft, whispering to herself, "Just Emily Carter." When she was done, she called Maya. "I'm ready," Emily said. Maya's voice came steady on the other end. "Good, I'll file the petition Monday morning. It'll shake him." Emily stared at the city skyline outside the window. Let it. After hanging up, she sat quietly, letting the reality sink in. She was about to become a single mother with a newborn on the way and no financial safety net. Fear rippled through her, cold and sharp. But beneath it was something new. Control. Later that afternoon, Dr. Chen called to check on Lily. "How's our brave girl today?" he asked, cheerful as always. "She's better," Emily said softly. "Breathing normal again." "Good. And how's Mom?" Emily hesitated. "Mom's learning," he chuckled. "That's all any of us can do." When the call ended, she glanced at the kitchen counter where her old MacBook Air sat open. She'd been avoiding her emails for weeks, but now she clicked through them. Donations from the charities she once worked for, a few inquiries from nonprofits needing part-time accounting help. Her fingers hovered, then clicked reply. Available to discuss project scope and timeline. Can start remotely. It was small, but it was a start. That night, as she prepared dinner, Lily came running in, clutching her stuffed bear. "Mommy, can we go to Central Park tomorrow?" Emily smiled faintly. "Sure, sweetheart, just us girls." "Daddy too?" Lily asked, hopeful eyes shining. The question hit her chest like a knife. "Not tomorrow, baby," she said gently. "But we'll have fun, I promise." When Lily ran back to her toys, Emily leaned on the counter, swallowing hard. She wasn't ready to tell her daughter the truth, that the man they waited for was never coming home. Before bed, she walked into her room, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the one Daniel had left. Her eyes were clearer now, her shoulders straighter. She reached into her nightstand and pulled out her wedding ring. The gold still gleamed, but it felt heavy in her palm. After a long silence, she placed it inside an old jewelry box and shut it softly. Then she whispered, "I choose myself." Because letting go wasn't weakness anymore. It was the first step toward becoming someone unstoppable. Monday morning brought a new kind of silence. Not the painful kind, but the kind that follows a decision made. The divorce papers had been filed. Emily woke early, the first rays of sunlight gliding across the living room floor. She brewed coffee in the small machine Daniel once bought for their old apartment in Queens, the one she'd almost thrown away. Now it was just hers. Lily sat at the kitchen table, swinging her legs and eating cereal. "Mommy, are we going to the park today?" "Yes, baby," Emily said, smoothing her daughter's curls. "But Mommy has some work first." She turned to her MacBook Air, its screen glowing softly. The email she'd sent to the charity over the weekend had received an instant reply. "We'd love to have you consult remotely. We can pay weekly." "Welcome back, Emily." Her hands trembled slightly as she typed her response. It wasn't just work. It was purpose, control, independence. For the first time in months, she wasn't waiting for Daniel's next move. She was making her own. She opened her notebook, jotting down expenses, budgets, and small goals. Beside her laptop sat a paper cup of Starbucks coffee, steam curling into the morning air. On a sticky note, she'd written, "Stay steady. Small steps." By noon, she had already finished her first project, auditing donations for a small cancer fund in Brooklyn. She sent it off, hit submit, and felt something bloom inside her chest. Pride. At 1 p.m., she took Lily to Central Park. The crisp air smelled of pine and roasted peanuts. Children laughed near the carousel, parents strolled with strollers, and Emily felt a fragile kind of peace she hadn't known in years. Lily giggled as pigeons scattered around her feet, her pink jacket bright against the autumn leaves. Dr. Chen happened to pass by, coffee in hand. "Mrs. Carter," he greeted warmly. "Dr. Chen," she smiled. "Just Emily, please." He nodded. "I'm glad to see you both outside. How's Lily?" "She's getting stronger every day. And you?" he asked gently. Emily hesitated, then said, "I'm learning to breathe again too." He smiled, raising his coffee cup. "Then keep breathing. You're doing better than you think." That evening when they returned home, Emily checked her emails again. Another message, this one from the foundation's director. We'd like to recommend you for a larger project. It pays double. Interested? Emily laughed softly, tears filling her eyes. Yes, she whispered, typing her reply. Later, while Lily colored at the table, Emily sat by the window and opened her Kindle. She resumed the book she'd started in the hospital, Women Who Run with the Wolves. The line she landed on read, "To be strong does not mean to be hard. It means to move through fear with grace." She closed her eyes and let the words sink in. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello? Mrs. Hayes?" a man's voice said. "This is Patrick from Hayes Capital. I just wanted to confirm. Daniel moved your health insurance to corporate-only coverage. You're no longer listed under the plan." Emily felt the familiar sting but didn't cry this time. "Thank you for letting me know," she said calmly. "Please update your records. The name's Emily Carter now." When she hung up, she leaned back in her chair. The pain was still there, but so was a steady fire beneath it. She realized that even if Daniel stripped away everything, the money, the name, the luxury, he couldn't take her resilience. She whispered to herself, "You built this life, Emily. You can build it again." And as the city lights flickered outside, she smiled. Not because everything was okay yet, but because for the first time she knew it would be. Because power isn't given back. It's rebuilt, one brave day at a time. The first time Emily met Noah Blake, she almost didn't notice him. It was late afternoon at the River Cafe in Brooklyn. The kind of place where sunlight spilled through glass walls and the Manhattan skyline glittered across the water like a memory she hadn't decided to keep. Emily was there to attend a nonprofit finance workshop, her first public event since the separation. She wore a simple navy dress, hair tied back, no makeup except for a touch of confidence she'd forced herself to feel. Noah was standing near the window, sleeves rolled up, phone tucked away. The rare kind of executive who looked people in the eye instead of the screen. When the organizer introduced him as the COO of a sustainable finance startup, Emily almost left. She'd had enough of powerful men with polished smiles. But there was something different about him. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He spoke like someone who'd already lost something once and knew what it cost. During the break, she sat alone at a corner table, reviewing spreadsheets on her MacBook Air. A soft voice broke the silence. "That's quite the budget model you've got there." She looked up. It was Noah, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Mind if I join you?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." He handed her 1 cup, black with a hint of cinnamon. "You look like the kind of person who forgets to sweeten things." She laughed quietly. "You're not wrong." They talked, at first about work, then about everything else. She told him she was a freelance accountant for charities now, trying to rebuild. He didn't pry, didn't mention Daniel or the tabloid stories. He just listened, nodding occasionally, his watch, a modest citizen, not a Rolex, catching the light. When the session resumed, he said, "Emily Carter, right?" She nodded. "Good, because I'd like to remember that name. It sounds like someone who gets things done." His words lingered long after the event ended. That evening, back in her apartment, Emily found herself thinking about him. Not in the way she used to think about Daniel, with longing or pain, but with curiosity. Who was this man who could look at her without judgment, without pity? She shook the thought away, reminding herself she wasn't ready. She had enough battles to fight. 2 days later, an email arrived. "Great talk the other day. Our company's looking for someone to audit our sustainability grants. Interested? Noah Blake." Emily smiled despite herself. She typed back, "If it's not charity work, I charge by the hour." He replied within minutes, "Then I guess I'd better hurry before you raise your rates." For the first time in months, she laughed out loud. Weeks passed, and their professional collaboration turned into quiet friendship. They met for coffee on Park Avenue once, then again at a small diner in Soho. He'd ask about Lily, about her projects, about her plans for the future. Never once did he ask about Daniel. One evening, as they left a client meeting, rain began to fall. Noah handed her his umbrella. "I'll walk you to the subway." "You don't have to," she said. "I know," he replied, "but I want to." They stood under the umbrella at the station entrance, rain tapping above them like applause from the universe. For a moment, Emily met his gaze, calm, steady, patient, and in that quiet pause, something shifted. Not love. Not yet. But the faint recognition of safety, a feeling she'd almost forgotten existed. That night, as she tucked Lily into bed, Emily caught her reflection in the mirror. She looked lighter. Not healed, not whole, but human again. Because sometimes the first step toward healing isn't falling in love. It's realizing you deserve to be seen. It was a cold Thursday night when it arrived. The email that would change everything. Emily had just put Lily to bed, the soft hum of the baby monitor filling the apartment. She sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by bills and half-finished work, sipping lukewarm tea. Her laptop pinged. One new message. The subject line read, "You should know what he's hiding." Her stomach tightened. The sender's address was anonymous, the kind that looked randomly generated. For a second, she almost deleted it, but curiosity, or maybe instinct, stopped her hand. She clicked. Inside were 3 attachments: photos, a PDF, and a screenshot of a financial ledger. The short message beneath said only, "You deserve the truth." Emily hesitated, then opened the photos. Her heart stopped. There was Daniel, her husband, at a rooftop party she didn't recognize, his arm around Vanessa Reed. The backdrop was unmistakable, the terrace of the Ritz-Carlton overlooking Central Park. But what made Emily's hands shake wasn't the intimacy. It was the envelope Daniel was handing to a man she knew too well, Hayden Cross, an investment journalist notorious for paid cover stories. She clicked to the next image. It showed Vanessa and Hayden shaking hands, both smiling. Behind them, a banner. Hayes Capital, Innovation Gala. Then the PDF, a document labeled Transfer Schedule. It listed payments made from Daniel's company to a PR agency under Vanessa's management. The amounts were enormous, 6 figures per transaction, labeled as media partnerships. Emily scrolled further down, her heart pounding. The last page listed 3 offshore accounts, one under the initials VR and another under DH. Her breath caught. No, she whispered, he wouldn't. But he had. Every late-night meeting, every unexplained trip, every promise that it's just business. It all made sense now. Daniel and Vanessa weren't just having an affair. They were laundering money through PR contracts and manipulating investor perception. She pushed back from the table, feeling dizzy. The air felt thick, her pulse drumming in her ears. Her phone buzzed again, another email. This one from an unknown sender named Truth Seeker. "I worked for them. I saw everything. They used your name, your marriage, your child for sympathy PR. He doesn't deserve to walk free." Emily stared at the words until her eyes blurred. She wanted to cry, to scream, but instead she sat in silence, gripping the edge of the table. For years Daniel had built his empire on charm and deceit, and she had helped him, unknowingly, believing in his dream. Now that same empire was built on fraud, and her name might still be tied to it. She printed the documents immediately, slipping them into a folder. Her fingers trembled as she texted Maya, "Need to see you first thing in the morning. Urgent." Minutes later, a reply came. "What happened?" "Proof of financial misconduct. He's not just a liar. He's a criminal." Maya's response came fast. "Do not tell anyone else. Keep everything safe. I'll come to you at 8 a.m. Emily closed her laptop, staring at the dark screen. Her reflection looked foreign, sharper, colder. Not the woman who used to cry in hospital hallways or wait for calls that never came. She stood, walking quietly to Lily's room. Her daughter slept peacefully, her small chest rising and falling in rhythm. Emily brushed a strand of hair from her forehead and whispered, "I'm going to protect you. I promise." She walked back to the living room, locking the folder inside a drawer. For the first time, the fear inside her didn't paralyze, it focused her. Because now, she had the one thing Daniel Hayes had never expected, proof strong enough to destroy him. The following evening, Emily was reviewing invoices for her charity client when her phone rang. The screen flashed with a name she hadn't seen in weeks. Daniel. For a moment, she just stared at it. Her instinct screamed to ignore him. But then a darker thought whispered, "What if he knows you have the files?" She answered, her voice steady. "What do you want, Daniel?" He exhaled slowly, a rehearsed sigh. "Emily, can we talk? Please. I know I've made mistakes. I want to make things right." Emily felt the familiar sting behind her eyes. "Make things right? You mean after months of lies and neglect?" "I deserve that," he admitted softly, "but not over the phone. Can you meet me? Somewhere quiet. Maybe the Park Hyatt, the restaurant downstairs. Tonight?" She hesitated. The Park Hyatt. of course. That was where he always met investors and journalists. Controlled, elegant, neutral ground. Why there? It's discreet, he said. No cameras, just dinner, one conversation. Every instinct told her it was a setup, but another part of her, the part that wanted answers, needed to see his face one last time. Fine, she said finally. 1 hour, that's all. At 7 p.m., Emily arrived at the hotel. The marble floors gleamed, candles flickered on every table. She wore a simple black dress and carried her folder, the one containing proof of his fraud, in her bag. The maitre d' led her to a private table near the back. Daniel stood when he saw her, his designer suit crisp, his expression carefully gentle. You look beautiful, Em. She sat down, keeping her posture calm. Don't, he smiled weakly. I miss you. I miss Lily. Vanessa's out of the picture. It was a mistake, all of it. Out of the picture? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Since when? Last week. She wanted control of the PR accounts. I ended it. You and Lily, you're my family. His voice cracked just enough to sound human. Can we start over? Emily stared at him, searching his eyes. They looked softer, but she knew that softness. It was performance. Still, she played along. Start over? You ruined us, Daniel. You left me in a hospital while our daughter was dying. I know, he whispered, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Just let me show you. Her fingers trembled. For a second, she almost believed him, until the sound of a camera shutter clicked behind her. Then another. Emily turned. A man with a press badge stood near the entrance, pretending to check his phone. Her heart sank. A setup. She pulled her hand back sharply. What is this, Daniel? His face paled. What do you mean? She reached into her purse, pulling out her phone. That reporter works for Business Insider. He doesn't show up at random. Daniel's mask cracked. Emily, don't overreact. You wanted a photo, didn't you? She hissed. A redemption story. Fallen CEO reunites with wife. That's your PR fix, isn't it? His jaw clenched. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. She stood, her chair scraping against the marble. You're not here to make peace. You're here to save yourself. He reached for her arm, but she stepped back. Don't touch me. The reporter looked up, startled, snapping another photo. Daniel muttered something under his breath. Emily looked him dead in the eye. You once told me perception was everything. Let's see how the world perceives you when they find out the truth. Then she turned and walked out, heels clicking like gunshots across the marble floor. Outside, the cold air hit her face, and she felt her chest rise for the first time in months. In her bag, the folder felt heavier than ever. Not with fear, but with power. Because now she didn't just have proof, she had purpose. And Daniel Hayes had no idea that the woman he tried to stage had just written the beginning of his downfall. The morning after the Park Hyatt ambush, Emily stood before her mirror in silence. The faint city light spilled through the blinds, tracing lines across her face, lines of exhaustion, yes, but also resolve. For the first time, she didn't look like a victim. She looked like a woman sharpening herself into something unstoppable. On her dresser lay everything she once thought defined her. Her wedding ring, an old photo from their honeymoon, Daniel's forgotten cufflink. She slid them all into a box and shut it. The sound of it closing felt final. She had spent the night replaying the moment she walked out of that hotel. The shock on Daniel's face, the camera flash catching his panic. The world would soon see the truth. But first, she needed to prepare. Not for revenge, but for justice. She took a deep breath and picked up her phone. Maya, she said when her lawyer answered, it's time. I was hoping you'd say that, Maya replied. You ready for the boardroom? More than ready. 2 days later, Emily met Maya downtown to plan their next move. The conference room windows overlooked the Manhattan skyline, the same skyline that once belonged to Daniel's world. Now, it was hers to reclaim. Maya spread out the documents on the table. The bank transfers, the offshore accounts, the forged PR deals. This isn't just infidelity, she said. It's financial misconduct. If we move strategically, we can bring both of them down. Emily's hand rested on the folder. No more waiting, she said quietly. I want everything exposed, the fraud, the manipulation, the lies. Maya nodded. Then we'll do it right. Publicly. But first, you'll need to face him again, this time in his own arena. That night, back at her apartment, Emily opened her closet. For months, she had lived in neutral colors, safe, invisible. But not anymore. She pulled out a black blazer she hadn't worn since her old accounting job, a symbol of the professional woman she'd buried for marriage. She paired it with a crisp white blouse and tailored pants. Her reflection in the mirror was unfamiliar but powerful. Still, she hesitated. Her hair, her tired eyes, they carried the traces of everything she'd endured. She thought of Lily, asleep in her room, and smiled faintly. "Do it for her," she whispered. The next morning, she called her friend Jenna, a stylist she hadn't spoken to in years. "I need a favor," Emily said. By afternoon, Jenna arrived with a suitcase full of possibilities. "You're done blending in," she said. "Let's make them see who they underestimated." Hours later, Emily stood in front of the mirror again. Same woman, different energy. Her hair was sleek, her posture straight, her expression fierce. No diamonds, no flash, just quiet, calculated strength. She wore minimal makeup, a soft nude lip, and confidence like armor. "You look like someone who stopped asking for permission," Jenna said, smiling. "Good," Emily replied. "That's exactly who I am now." When Jenna left, Emily sat at her desk and opened her MacBook. She reviewed the emails from Noah, a new contract for a sustainability audit at his company, along with a note. "Proud of you. Let me know if you need backup." She typed back, "You might want to keep your calendar open next week. There's going to be a storm on Park Avenue." For the first time, she didn't feel fear about what was coming. She felt ready. She glanced once more at her reflection in the window, the city lights flickering behind her. "He built a kingdom on lies," she whispered. "Now he'll watch it burn." Because Emily Carter had finally learned that power doesn't come from being loved. It comes from being unafraid to stand alone. The elevator doors slid open onto the 42nd floor of Hayes Capital. The marble hallway gleamed, lined with portraits of investors and awards Daniel had once flaunted like trophies. Emily stepped out, her heels clicking in steady rhythm, Maya beside her holding the thick folder of evidence. Employees glanced up, whispering. Everyone recognized her. The wife who had vanished. The ghost Daniel thought he'd buried. At the end of the corridor loomed the glass boardroom. Through the transparent walls, Daniel stood at the head of the table, surrounded by board members, attorneys, and Vanessa Reed, perfectly composed, pretending nothing had happened. The city skyline stretched behind them, Manhattan glittering like a cruel witness. Emily paused at the door, inhaled deeply, then pushed it open. The room fell silent. Daniel froze mid-sentence. Vanessa's smile faltered. "Emily," Daniel said finally, tone tight, "this isn't the place." "This is exactly the place," Emily interrupted, her voice calm but razor-sharp. "You built this company with my trust. You can face me with my truth." Maya set the folder on the table and opened it. "We'll keep this brief. My client is here to present documented evidence of financial misconduct, falsified PR partnerships, offshore transfers, and media manipulation." Gasps rippled through the room. One board member whispered, "Is this true?" Daniel's face turned pale. "This is ridiculous. She's bitter, trying to destroy me." Emily cut in again. "Don't. Not another lie. You paid journalists to inflate your company's reputation, funneled money through Vanessa's firm, and forged my signature on joint accounts. I have the records. Every transfer. Every fake invoice." Maya slid the first document across the table. The PDF from the anonymous email, then photos from the Ritz-Carlton event. Vanessa's face drained of color. "This is defamation," Vanessa snapped. "You have no proof those payments." Emily's tone stayed measured. "Actually, Vanessa, I do, and so does the IRS. Copies were submitted this morning." A tense silence swallowed the room. The board members exchanged wary glances. One cleared his throat. "Daniel, is any of this accurate?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I built this company from nothing. I did what I had to do to protect it." Emily stepped forward. "No, Daniel, you did what you had to do to protect yourself. You sacrificed your integrity, your family, your daughter's trust, all for greed." He slammed his hand on the table. "You think anyone will believe you over me? I'm Hayes Capital." "Not anymore," Maya said evenly. "Effective immediately, this board has the right to call for an emergency ethics review." She turned to the members. "The documents speak for themselves. If you ignore this, you'll all be complicit." For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the chairman spoke. "We'll review the evidence. Daniel, you're suspended pending investigation." Daniel's face twisted. "You can't do this." But no one looked at him. The board members avoided his gaze. whispering among themselves. Vanessa gathered her things in a flurry of panic, her composure cracking. Emily turned to leave. "You wanted to control the narrative, Daniel. Now it's out of your hands." As she walked toward the door, Daniel's voice rose behind her, desperate now. "Emily, you'll regret this." She paused just long enough to glance over her shoulder. "No," she said softly, "you will." Outside the boardroom, the city lights glimmered through the glass walls. Maya caught up to her, smiling faintly. "That was poetic." Emily exhaled, the tension in her shoulders finally releasing. "It's not over," she said quietly, "but for the first time I'm not the one afraid." They stepped into the elevator, the doors closing with a metallic whisper. Inside her chest, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not revenge, but freedom. Because when truth finally speaks, it doesn't whisper, it roars loud enough to bring down empires. The story broke before dawn. By 7 a.m., the words Hayes Capital under investigation were splashed across every major financial outlet. The Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, even Business Insider, all carried the same images. Daniel Hayes, pale-faced, leaving the boardroom as flashes from cameras lit up his downfall. Emily watched from her kitchen, a mug of tea in her hands, Lily still asleep in the next room. The television on the counter hummed with breaking news. A reporter's voice echoed. Sources confirmed that the CEO's estranged wife provided documents revealing fraudulent transactions linked to offshore accounts managed by PR executive Vanessa Reed. There it was, the truth no longer buried. For a long time, she just stood there numb. Then quietly, she smiled. Not out of joy or vengeance, but out of relief. The truth had finally done what she couldn't. It had spoken louder than his charm. Meanwhile, on Park Avenue, Daniel's empire was cracking. At 9 a.m., he stormed into the office, barking orders, only to find security guards escorting Vanessa out. "This is a misunderstanding," she was saying, but her voice trembled. Her heels clicked like gunshots as she disappeared through the glass doors. Daniel Hayes, the head of compliance, said coldly, "Your access has been revoked. Until further notice, you are suspended from all company operations." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake. I am this company." The man didn't flinch. Not anymore. Back at her apartment, Emily's phone buzzed non-stop. Journalists, lawyers, even former colleagues reaching out with shock and sympathy. She ignored them all. Only one message made her pause, from Noah Blake. "He's finished. You did it. I hope you're proud of yourself, because I sure am." She typed back slowly. "I'm not proud, just lighter." Later that afternoon, she met Maya in her office. The lawyer grinned as she poured coffee. "You officially detonated a corporate bomb, Emily. Half of Wall Street's gossiping about you." Emily laughed softly. "Let them talk. I didn't do this for fame." "I know," Maya said. "You did it for peace, but you also set a precedent. A woman standing up against one of Manhattan's golden boys. That matters." They spent hours reviewing next steps. The civil case, custody filings, the protection of her new contracts. Emily listened carefully, taking notes, every detail precise. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was rebuilding. When she left the office, the October wind whipped through her hair as she walked down Fifth Avenue. For the first time, she didn't feel small among the towering buildings. She passed Tiffany's, where Daniel once bought gifts for Vanessa. The display window glittered under sunlight, beautiful but hollow. She didn't stop. At home that night, she tucked Lily into bed. Her daughter blinked sleepily. "Mommy, is Daddy in trouble?" Emily hesitated, then brushed Lily's hair gently. "Daddy made choices that hurt people, but it's okay now. Mommy's taking care of us." Lily nodded and yawned. "You're really strong, Mommy." Her throat tightened. "Maybe," she whispered. "I'm just trying to be brave." After Lily fell asleep, Emily sat by the window, the city glowing beneath her. She opened her MacBook, a soft reflection of light against the glass. An unread email blinked at the top, from an anonymous address again. "He's planning something. Don't let your guard down." Her heart skipped. She stared at the message, unease creeping up her spine. Could it be Daniel? Another attempt to manipulate the narrative? Or someone inside the company trying to warn her? She took a deep breath, saving the message. Not fear. Focus. She knew better now. The war wasn't over, but Daniel's mask had fallen. And once the truth is seen, it can't be unseen. Because when a kingdom built on lies collapses, its king always forgets. The queen still knows how to fight. The courtroom on the Upper East Side was cold, its marble walls towering like judgment itself. Cameras waited outside, news vans lined the street. The once untouchable CEO of Hayes Capital was now a defendant. Daniel sat at the plaintiff's table in a tailored gray suit that looked a size too tight, his face drawn, his eyes hollow. Across from him, calm and poised, sat Emily Carter, no longer his wife, no longer his possession, but his reckoning. She adjusted her blazer, Maya beside her, flipping through organized folders. Each document, each photo, each transfer record had become a piece of truth too heavy for him to dodge. The judge entered. The crowd hushed. Court is now in session for Hayes versus Carter. Daniel's attorney began first, his tone oily and confident. Your Honor, my client deeply regrets personal mistakes that were made during his marriage. However, this case, Maya stood. Objection. This isn't about regret, it's about accountability. Mr. Hayes diverted marital funds, fabricated PR invoices, and placed the financial security of his family at risk. We have proof. The judge nodded. Proceed. Maya walked to the screen as the clerk dimmed the lights. A projection lit up the wall. The document trail, the fake invoices, the secret transfers. These accounts, she said, tapping the screen, were opened under shell corporations managed by Vanessa Reed. Payments were disguised as marketing initiatives, but the funds ultimately ended in personal accounts tied to Mr. Hayes. Daniel shifted in his chair, his jaw clenching. Emily sat still, her hands folded neatly. The whispers behind her grew louder. Investors, reporters, ex-employees murmuring the fall of a man who once sold them perfection. Maya continued, her voice sharp as glass. This wasn't business. This was betrayal, both financial and personal. While Mrs. Carter struggled to pay hospital bills for their child, Mr. Hayes spent company funds on gifts, hotels, and events designed to deceive the media and shareholders alike. Daniel's lawyer stood abruptly. My client's decisions were strategic. Strategic? Maya snapped. You mean criminal. The room went still. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Hayes, do you wish to respond? Daniel cleared his throat. Your Honor, I built Hayes Capital from nothing. Every move I made was to protect it. Yes, mistakes were made, but Emily doesn't understand the pressure I was under. Emily finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. You're right, Daniel. I don't understand how a man under pressure could choose champagne over his daughter's hospital bed, or how he could justify lies as love. Daniel's eyes flicked toward her, anger, guilt, confusion, all clashing at once. When the final evidence was submitted, Maya handed the judge the closing statement. The judge scanned the files, silent for what felt like hours. Finally, he spoke. The evidence is overwhelming. The court finds Mr. Hayes guilty of financial misconduct, marital fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Gasps filled the room. Daniel's face drained of color. Custody of the minor child will remain with Mrs. Carter. The judge continued. Mr. Hayes will provide full child support and restitution for misused funds. Additionally, he is barred from contacting the plaintiff outside legal counsel. The gavel struck. Bang. It was over. Daniel slumped back, defeated. Vanessa, sitting in the back row, stood quietly and slipped out, her face pale beneath the camera flashes waiting outside. Maya touched Emily's hand. You did it. Emily exhaled slowly. No, she said softly, the truth did. As they exited the courthouse, sunlight poured over her shoulders. The press surged forward, microphones flashing. Emily, how does it feel? She smiled gently, holding Lily's hand as the little girl ran up from Maya's assistant's arms. It feels like breathing again, Emily said. And as they walked past the chaos, Daniel watched from the courthouse steps, powerless for the first time. Because justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it walks out and heals, holding a child's hand, leaving silence in its wake. The week after the verdict, the empire Daniel Hayes built began to crumble piece by piece. The glossy glass tower on Park Avenue that once bore his name now displayed a stark new sign, under federal investigation. The building's lobby, once filled with the hum of interns and the echo of designer shoes, now sat nearly empty. Daniel arrived one morning, still clinging to routine, only to find his keycard deactivated. The security guard, who once greeted him with "Good morning, Mr. Hayes," now looked away uncomfortably. "I'm sorry, sir, your clearance has been revoked." For a moment, Daniel just stood there, staring at the metal detector, disbelief painting his face. Then the anger came. "This is my company," he barked. But no one answered. He left without another word, the wind outside sharp against his face. His Mercedes S-Class sat untouched in the garage, now under company repossession. He took a cab. An ordinary yellow cab, for the first time in years, staring blankly at the city that once bowed to him. By noon, his phone was buzzing non-stop, shareholders demanding explanations, journalists seeking comment, old friends distancing themselves. Even his PR allies, the same people Vanessa had groomed, refused his calls. The media had turned him into a headline of failure, from Wall Street icon to scandal symbol. He switched off the phone and stared out the window at the blur of Manhattan rushing by. Every skyscraper reflected back his downfall. When he reached his apartment, the penthouse on Fifth Avenue, the doorman stopped him. "Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry. The unit is under asset freeze order. You'll need to speak to your attorney." He didn't. He just walked away. That evening, he checked into a small business hotel downtown, the kind he used to sneer at during his early days. The carpet smelled faintly of bleach. The window overlooked an alley. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, and laughed. A hollow, broken sound. Across the city, Emily was at home reading Lily a bedtime story. When she tucked her daughter in, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Vanessa Reed cooperates with investigators. Emily read the article. Vanessa had confessed everything, trading information for immunity. All the shell companies, the forged statements, the offshore money trails. Everything. She closed the phone and sighed. "Poetic justice," she whispered. Meanwhile, in that dim hotel room, Daniel watched the same headline on TV. His hands shook as he turned up the volume. Vanessa's smiling photo filled the screen, her statement clear. "Daniel orchestrated every decision. I was only following orders." He hurled the remote at the wall, the plastic shattering. "Liar," he shouted, but the word echoed uselessly. He walked to the small desk, opening the drawer. Inside lay an unopened Cartier ring box, one he'd bought for Vanessa months ago. He flipped it open. The diamond glinted weakly under the cheap lamp. He laughed again, bitterly. "You were worth every mistake, huh?" Outside, the city roared on, indifferent. The next morning, Daniel walked through Central Park with his collar turned up, trying to disappear into the crowd. Near Bethesda Fountain, he saw a mother and daughter feeding pigeons. For a split second, the little girl turned and smiled, and his chest tightened. She looked like Lily. He stood frozen, the memory slicing through him. The hospital, Emily's tears, the sound of his daughter's wheezing breath. He tried to swallow the guilt, but it burned too deeply. He sat on a bench, pulling his coat tighter as the wind cut through. His reflection shimmered faintly in the fountain's water. A man unrecognizable, stripped of wealth, reputation, and power. He whispered to himself, voice hoarse, "What did you do, Daniel?" No one answered. Across town, Emily watched the same sunrise Daniel did, only hers came through clean windows, lighting a kitchen full of warmth and peace. She poured coffee, looked at Lily coloring beside her, and smiled softly. Daniel had lost everything. Emily had regained herself. Because sometimes justice doesn't end in prison or payback. It ends in the quiet, undeniable victory of moving on without looking back. 6 months later, spring returned to Manhattan. The trees in Central Park were dressed in soft pink blooms, and the city that once felt like a battlefield now hummed like renewal. For Emily, every sunrise carried peace instead of panic. The sound of Lily's laughter replaced the echo of courtroom walls. The scent of coffee, not hospital disinfectant, filled her mornings. Her apartment, once a refuge of survival, had transformed into a home. The walls were painted warm cream, sunlight spilling across a wooden table covered in Lily's drawings. Her daughter was thriving, her lungs stronger, her smile wider. Emily had started a new routine. Drop Lily at preschool, then head to her consulting office downtown, a small but modern space on Madison Avenue with her name on the glass door. Emily Carter Financial Advisory. She no longer worked under anyone's shadow. She worked for herself and for the life she rebuilt from ashes. That morning, she prepared her presentation for a sustainability fund, her MacBook open beside a Starbucks cup and a notebook scribbled with goals. As she double-checked numbers, her phone buzzed. A familiar name flashed, Noah Blake. She smiled. "Morning, Mr. Blake," she answered. "Morning, Miss Carter. I heard your proposal was approved. Congratulations." "Thank you," she said, trying not to blush. "You free tonight?" he asked. "I was thinking dinner at the River Cafe. It's been 6 months since our first coffee there. Feels like a full circle moment." Emily hesitated, looking at her reflection in the window. The woman staring back wasn't broken anymore. She was calm, grounded, and ready. "I'd like that," she said softly. That evening, the city shimmered under twilight as Emily crossed the Brooklyn Bridge. The restaurant was alive with gentle music and candlelight reflecting off the water. Noah stood waiting, dressed simply in a gray coat, his warm smile genuine as ever. "You look happy," he said when she arrived. "I am," she admitted. "For the first time, I don't feel like I'm surviving, I'm living." They talked for hours, about work, about Lily, about second chances. When dessert arrived, Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn coin. "My father gave me this when I started my company," he said. "He told me, don't let failure make you bitter. Let it make you better. You remind me of that." Emily smiled, eyes glistening. "You helped me remember I could start again." He reached across the table, brushing his hand against hers. "You did that on your own, Emily." Later, as they walked along the riverfront, the Manhattan skyline glowed behind them, towers of light against the dark sky. The breeze carried the scent of spring flowers, and for a moment, the world felt perfectly still. "I used to think my story ended when Daniel left," Emily said quietly. "But now I see that was just the middle." Noah looked at her, eyes soft. "And what's the ending?" She smiled faintly. "Peace. That's all I ever wanted." They stopped under a street lamp, the city lights dancing in their eyes. For the first time in years, she let herself lean into something gentle. Not the fire of revenge, not the ache of loss, but the warmth of hope. When she returned home that night, Lily was asleep, clutching her bear. Emily kissed her forehead and whispered, "We're safe now." She walked to the window, gazing out at the city that had once broken her, now shining like a promise reborn. She opened her notebook and wrote 3 words at the top of a fresh page: gratitude, freedom, love. Her phone buzzed again, a message from Maya. "Your case inspired 3 new clients to leave toxic marriages. You changed lives, Emily." She smiled, wiping a tear, because she hadn't just survived Daniel Hayes. She had rewritten her story, from heartbreak to healing, from loss to legacy. And as the sun rose over Manhattan the next morning, Emily Carter finally understood that real revenge was never destruction. It was rebuilding a life so beautiful, even pain had no place left to stay. So that's how the story ends, my friends. You're still here, right? If you've stayed until this moment, maybe something in Emily's journey has touched your heart, because pain, betrayal, and healing are things we all face in our own ways. Emily's story isn't just about revenge, it's about rebirth. It's about finding peace when the world tries to break you. Remember what Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Every obstacle Emily faced became the very path that rebuilt her strength. She learned, just like many of us must, that sometimes losing everything is how we finally find ourselves. So if you're standing in your own storm right now, breathe. You are stronger than you think, and your story isn't over yet. Healing doesn't come from hate, it comes from choosing peace, day after day. If this story made you feel something, even a little, like share and subscribe. Not just for us, but for every soul who needs to be reminded. Pain can turn into power, and endings can become the most beautiful beginnings.